So are we missing any full members then? Yes. Bill Spencer, is he on there?
I didn't hear that he wasn't, but he did make it for the site walks, which is unusual for him, so I got a sense that he might be
It's
away.
starting to come back a little bit, you know, we're probably 50% of what we normally do.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order, 7:02. If we could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. I will seat Thad for Bill Spencer. We're going to, I'm sorry?
I couldn't hear you.
I was seating Commissioner Thad for an absent member. We're going to postpone the election of officers until next month when our secretary can be present. We have an opportunity for public participation. If there's anyone that has something to bring forward that isn't already on our agenda for tonight, it's your opportunity to do so.
Well, I'm here to answer questions if anything came up. Robert Lipner, 77 Old Poverty Road.
Yes, sir, we'll get to your application in just a little bit. You're on our agenda, so you'll have an opportunity. All right, so we'll move on to the show cause hearings continued. 209 Bagley and 192 and 214 Painter Road. Ty, if we have more information brought to us from since the last meeting?
Nothing has been submitted to the land use office. I did remind them that the two surveys for Painter Road still have not been received delineating the disturbed areas. I don't know if either of you have those yet. And then I understand the soil scientist that's working on your behalf is here to answer some questions and maybe explain a couple things.
Okay, if you'd like to come forward.
Carl, did you mention at the beginning something about Bill Spence?
Bill Spencer is absent tonight,
Oh, okay.
so I seated that in his place.
Gotcha, thank you.
Just so we have everybody.
All
that we
right.
can't
I
have
thought you
seat-
mentioned his name and I wasn't sure what you said.
Oh,
Thank you.
that's all. And then if he shows up, I'll seat him and unseat that.
Good evening. For the record, James McManus, Certified Professional Soil Scientist with JMM Wetland Consulting Services, offices out of Newtown.
Thank you.
Just a little bit about me. I have a master's degree in plant and soil science from the University of Connecticut. I have over 30 years of experience in soil and natural resource projects. I've worked from Maine to Florida as far west as Minnesota. I'm also I'm on the board of SNE, which is the Soil Science Society of Southern New England, as well as I'm on one of the members in the Hydric Soil Technical Committee of New England. And what our job is to actually go out and figure out how to flag wetlands better. So people like myself and others, when they go out, when people come in front of you, we put stuff so they can make better decisions. So a little bit about me, my little background. I don't know if I mentioned that, over 30 years of experience. At 209 Bagley, I went out to the site on September 28th and flagged wetlands along the western part of the project site, or of the overall site, where some tree removal activity took place, as well out in the western part where some activity took place. Now on the other two places, 192 Painter and 214, it was just on the eastern side where the tree removal extended beyond 209 and kept going. The first question I like to, I think it was a little misleading on the plans where it said wetland impact or wetland disturbance area of 10,000 square feet. That's not what I was looking for the surveyor to do. What I wanted it to do was to kind of figure out within the upland review area and in the wetland where the activity took place, where the slash was deposited, where the skidders were moving, where logs were stored, and figure out where the disturbance areas was. If you remember, if you saw my report, they actually, there was no impact to the wetland itself. The equipment stayed in the upland area, just view area. And then the slash, the branches, the limbs were left in the wetland. So it made it look like we had all this disturbance in the wetland from skidding and from tree removal, and that's not the case at all. Actually, there was only
It was all in the 50-foot buffer.
a 15-foot upland review area.
I guess it was a couple sets of tracks or something that went.
It made up, well, where they stored the logs on 209, that was technically a little bit of a wetland area there that they disturbed while they were pulling things in and out. I only noted about 2 stumps that are actually went on the wetland side of my wetland boundary. Most of the stumps were along the wetland boundary or within the 50-foot upland review area. So going into the actually restoration plan, since there was no physical impacts to the wetland other than the storage of the slash, I said that the trees, or that the slash and the limbs and such that were deposited in the wetland itself would be removed by a certified professional tree service that has equipment to do that. And they do it all the time. I've been on many pipelines and overhead power lines where tree removal activities take place, and they're, professional group does a very good job. However, if there were machines who can pick the slash, can't do that, any of that brush would be removed by hand. Chainsawed up and removed out and stored and then chipped or removed off site. All the mechanical machinery used to do that job will be in the upland review area, not in the wetland. It will be staged in the uplands. I asked for about 2 to 3 inches of wood chips be placed down in the disturbed soil areas during the winter months. I don't want too much because if you add too many wood chips, then nothing's going to grow. You're just going to have wood chips. But wood chips are good for stabilizing soils. That's why I wanted them down. And then in the spring, what I said was, if needed, because Mother Nature's things are gonna start growing, but if needed, we could add a wildlife conservation seed mix in areas where the soil is still exposed and we need something to grow. So I passed out to you folks something from New England wetland plants. I use them a lot on things, and that's just a typical seed mix that I would probably put down in that area, which is just a conservation wildlife seed mix. And you can see what would probably pop up there, various uplands and wetland plants. And on 209's Bagby Road, in the western part of the site, the same opportunity would take place. We would remove the slash from the wetlands. We would fix any ruts that are established during that process. Put any wood chips down on exposed soils and come back in the spring and seed anything that's left over that still doesn't have, adequate growth. Now on 192 Painter and 214 Painter Road, it's essentially the same thing we're going to do as we did for 209, which is have the equipment move the slash out of the wetland, add some silt fence if necessary, put the wood chips down, and come back in the spring if necessary, seed the wildlife conservation seed mix. So that was about all I was planning to do, since there was no physical impacts to the wetlands. This really isn't a mitigation or restoration plan, it's more of a stabilization plan. And in my opinion, there was no impact to the wetland. There's no need to be adding all kinds of new plants because no impact had developed. And if we plant a 4-foot-high tree, it's going to take 15 years for it to do anything anyway. So it's kind of more of a punitive action than an actual environmental or wetland protection action. So that was the theory behind my restoration or fixing and mitigation plan lined out in my report that was dated December 7th, and for 209 Bagley Road, and December 12th for 192 and 214 Painter Road. So that's all I have for now. Any questions, I certainly can answer.
Did I hear you say there were 2 stumps within the wetlands?
I observed 2 stumps that were, if the wetland flag is where the microphone is, I had a stump here, and then another stump along the boundaries. Most of the stumps were in the upland review area, 50-foot upland review area, or higher, or out of the upland review area, just up on the slopes. But unfortunately, the tree man put the slash into the wetlands.
Okay. Questions for the gentleman?
The work that's gonna take place if you're pulling out the slash, is that gonna happen over the winter, or is that,
I like to happen now,
yeah,
because the ground is getting hard with today's weather.
yeah,
It certainly don't want to do it in April when things are getting mucky again.
yeah, make more work.
At least get the slash out. And if we have to do other stuff later, because you're whatever, we can talk about that. But let's get the process rolling here, especially when we have to bring in the equipment for the professionals, the heavy equipment, the heavier equipment than hands cutting up, sawing up branches.
So they just pulled the logs and left everything else?
Pretty much, that's what I
So
observed.
it's not all of it can just go in a chipper, I guess is what I'm asking.
Definitely not.
Okay.
A lot of it can chip. A lot of stuff in the wetlands can just be chipped up. But again, in my letter, I also said that I probably should be there. I don't want 10 inches of chips everywhere. I want a thin layer of chips, so things will grow in April. And then we'll assist it with a seed mix if necessary.
Okay, so in a nutshell, you're saying that the 10,000-foot number that you had in your report, the bulk of that is within the upland review area?
Well, it's a combination of the tree removal activity. It's the skidders and the heavy equipment that was in the upland review area. It's the actual logging, and then it's the slash. So I kind of told the surveyor, can you figure out what that is? And he did, I guess. I wasn't there, but that was my purpose. And he came up with a number, 10,000 and change. But that included kind of everything.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's an impact to everything. It's kind of where the disturbance is.
Well,
That was my intent of having him put that on the map. I'm not sure if that actually happened.
okay.
But I don't know if you've been out to the site. Like I said, there is no disturbance in the wetland except for that one place where the logs were being drawn out and then stacked. They were stacked in the upland, but when they were moving things around, I actually flagged the spot that kind of came up. I don't know if you noticed that in the field, and the flags were still there. So he was technically driving in the wetland.
Okay, so you're proposing this wildlife mix, but no plantings of any other sort?
I don't think we need them. I mean, again, there was just tree removal happening. It's a fairly thin understory anyways. And in spots, it's thicker in other spots, but,
Well, it won't be for long with all those giant trees removed,
well, there you go.
so things are gonna take off.
Well, as long as it's not
Things are gonna-
invasive, Mother Nature's gonna take care of business for
Things
us.
are gonna take off in a hurry over there, I'm sure. All right, well, thank you. I don't think we quite have the information that we need as far as the square footage of wetlands that have been disturbed on the 3 properties, and we need that.
Well, actually, there has been no wetlands disturbed, except for that one
Well,
spot.
you said there was 2 stumps within the wetlands, and we have a couple of places where the skidder or some other machinery went into the wetlands.
That's about,
So there's been
that's
some.
about 20 square feet with the skidder, and 2 stumps, not an impact. It's a tree that was removed. That's not an impact to wetlands. A neighbor can
Well, that
take
could-
his
That
tree.
could be argued, I think.
Well, you are allowed by the statutes to remove trees from your wetlands and from your yard. What happened was they took too many down. They turned it into a tree removal where in my opinion, you actually should be talking to a commission or at least have a logging plan. They didn't have either.
There is a lot that went wrong over there.
Right. Well, we're here to correct that.
All right.
But 2 stumps being removed inside of a wetland is not an impact to wetland, in my opinion. At least on this site. It could be on other sites, but this site, no.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I will move to continue these show cause hearings until next month. They are at 209 Bagley, 192 Painter, and 214 Painter Road, because we have one of our consulting services that's gonna go out there and see if they concur with the approach that the applicant is taking. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you.
Carl, your guy was out yesterday, by the way?
We won't have the report back,
No,
I guess, until
Okay.
our next meeting.
Yep, I just let you know, I didn't know if you knew he was out already.
Okay, thank you.
All set?
Yep, you're all set for now. Okay, old business, let's see, 77 Old Poverty Road, that was a seat bill for that at this point. You have to make that note, please. So we have 77 Old Poverty Road, we had a site visit out there. Would you like to paraphrase?
I wrote something about that, but,
Okay, good.
yep, about 3 o'clock Wednesday, January 5th, we went out and met, Thad, myself, Rob, and Ty went out, and we kinda looked at, where the proposed work was gonna happen, which is, from my understanding of it, the channel coming off of the pond.
Right.
And I guess, was there tree work to be done in the woodland as well?
There's only one area right near where we would be, hopefully, I'm calling it dredging, I may be using the wrong term for the
Okay.
brook. But, yes, right next to that, there was some fallen trees that I wanted to take out
Okay.
that were dead.
So we looked at that, it's basically, the pond runs off in the channel closest to his yard, and there's like a woodland swamp uphill of that. And I guess for what we were looking at, we were wondering why we would be digging that out and, doing any tree work. I mean, if you're just pulling dead trees out, that's one thing, but it's, would be considered in a wetland, in my opinion. And then the sort of swampy area above it, you'd probably be lowering that channel down and would drain that out. It's kind of the way we saw it, so. And then having, really no particular reason or plan as to how that was gonna happen, we were kind of left with the question of why and what was gonna happen. The application didn't seem like it had enough detail.
Well, could I add something to that? The other thing is that from what we could tell there, the dredging, if he was gonna dredge that little canal coming from the pond there down and lower that, then I wanted to ask whether or not the intent was to dredge the pond because it had been filling up over the years.
No, it wasn't really to dredge the pond. It was, if you're, the wetland part between the brook and the road, we don't really plan to touch, other than take out those few fallen trees
Okay.
right next to the brook. We weren't going to touch that at all. The focus is that in the location we wanted to dredge it, we have a drain on the other side of our driveway,
Okay.
which feeds into that brook. So rainwater, when it's very heavy rains, goes into the brook
Okay.
and doesn't flood the property, which is the space. We have a circular driveway, so
Yep.
in the oval, in the middle of the oval, if it rains very hard, it fills up. Because right now, the drain that's there, which we didn't put in, which was there when we bought the house, goes into the brook, but the level is now, it probably wasn't originally, it probably was significantly higher than where the brook was previously, so it would just drain into it. Now, if it rains heavily, it floods in between our, not on the driveway, which is more elevated, but in the oval of the driveway, and it'll sit there for days, because I actually investigated to find out where the drain entered the brook, and it was too low now.
Yeah, well, the
So the-
grasses have grown in the channel and it's
Right.
kind of filled, the elevations come up. Okay, we didn't see the pipe, I guess, or drain or whatever that.
It's right next
call
to
it,
the
but-
brook. It's not so easy to see. In fact, there had been a couple of heavy rains after we exposed it. I found it.
Okay. Is that
Um,
what looked like there was maybe some digging or something going
Yes,
on right next to
right
the
in
road?
that digging spot
Okay,
is
that's
where
that
the
comes
drain
out.
comes out, where the pipe comes out. So I wasn't looking to do a big thing. I just wanted to go a little beyond where that drain is, because the rest of the elevation is lower
Yeah, it drops.
as you go down toward where it goes under the road.
Yep.
At the end of our driveway. So the focus was really just to improve that, so that when it did rain heavily, it could go right into what's already there
Okay,
and just not sit there for a few days.
okay.
That's really the only purpose.
Yeah, that's where, for me anyways, that's what I was wondering, like, why are we doing that?
Yeah, that's the only reason to do it.
Okay.
We have no other focus. I mean, the pond has been pretty stable since we lived there. We own the house since 2010. The only thing I did was last year I put in some additional carp. I had to get a permit to put in triploid carp into the pond.
Okay.
And they, I think it was 10 or 12 carp were permitted in that size pond. And then we run a fountain in the, when it's not winter. And that helps keep the pond pretty clear. We don't put any chemicals or anything into it. I've been trying to maintain the invasives as much as possible that are in that area. I forgot what they're called, but the reed type things, which are invasive, not the cattails, but the other. Phragmites, yeah. I've been trying to cut them down pretty regularly because they're invasive. And there are some other multiflora roses and things like that. I mean, I'm not doing a big thing. It's just, just like basically home care maintenance kind of thing.
Okay.
But that's the main purpose. And I think last time I mentioned that the landscape person who said they would do, who also does excavation, let me just see what he said. He was going to use a very lightweight machine, he said, to do it, and I don't think it would take very long. He also felt it was not a lot of cubic feet that would be removed either.
Okay, so you're not going very deep, just enough to get.
No, I just want to get, somewhat, I don't know how much below that pipe we can get, but I think even going down a foot would make a significant difference at this point.
Just cleaning it out, probably.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
Are you intending to take down any trees that aren't already dead, or have you already taken any down, or?
The only things I've ever taken down there, which were along the road, were some dead hemlocks,
Okay.
small hemlocks, but they were dead.
And I'm trying to, I wasn't at the site, so I'm still trying to understand how this is all working. The area in between your circular driveway, that's where you're saying the water ponds?
Yeah. It's very
Here?
flat through there.
Right, it's in here that it,
Okay, is there a pipe that gets the water out of there?
yes, there's a drain that looks like a sewer drain in
Okay,
here, which
all
is
right.
Okay.
just about the lowest level, goes straight across to the brook.
Okay, and that's
That's
all
the pipe.
functioning properly?
It's functioning.
It's
yeah.
just that the slope of this is filled in so that it doesn't drain?
Right, the water level in here has become higher.
Yes.
Okay.
The grasses and
Because
whatnot.
you know, because this,
filled
the
it in.
water comes in from here
Mhm.
and goes out here.
Okay,
So, the silt that has developed is mostly, I'm calling
Okay.
it silt, I may be using the wrong term, is
Excuse
mostly
me,
in
are
here.
we having buildup in the receiving channel, is that what's going on
more or less, yeah, there's vegetation in there and, you know,
but if
just
you look at that
natural,
drawing-
you know, stuff flowing through, yep.
This, the
It's not like
elevation
erosion or
here
anything,
is
it's just
significantly
what's
lower
gone
than
down
over here.
the
It's
river
very
system.
flat coming out of here.
Okay, so once it gets to that point, it drops off pretty well?
I mean, I don't know if you noticed, but there was also a little gate,
There is, yeah.
but that's because of the carp that was required to be there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, it didn't look like it was a functioning, like, check dam or a weir or something
No, it's
like
just
that.
to prevent the fish from getting in.
Okay.
I have one question. I know you said that they took a couple dead trees down along Old Poverty Road, but
Right.
there was one tree that looked like it had been taken down on your driveway side, and then it looked like they,
It was dug out.
yeah, it was dug out and filled back in.
That's why you said it was dug out. What was removed there was a Russian olive, which is also an invasive. But we took it out mostly to try to find
The end of the pipe.
the end of the pipe that goes into the brook.
Okay, so the pipe is down that far,
Right.
okay.
Yeah, it goes from the center of the circle all the way to the channel.
Because the center of the driveway, that drain is at the lowest level of the elevation there.
It just looked like there had been a tree there and they had a stump grinder and they filled it in with afterwards.
I wouldn't really call it a tree. It was a Russian olive bush that had gotten quite large. There are some evergreens standing right there next to it, but those are still there.
Yeah.
We just took the olive out. Well, I thought it's good to take out invasives anyway, but you know, it's very interesting. I want to mention one thing. You know, when you buy a house, I don't remember anything being mentioned to us about wetland or wetland rules.
That's not surprising.
I'm just telling you this because maybe, I didn't even know I owned wetland, to be honest with you. To me, it was, you know, my property. And we were basically doing similar to whatever the previous owner had done, except maybe maintaining it better. But I don't think people even know. Like the guy who did cut down a couple of the dead hemlocks along the road, he said to me that someone stopped and talked to him. And they said, you know, you might be within 50 feet of a wetland. So, that's the kind of thing I wouldn't have even known that we had to ask about. You know what I mean? It's not something that I was aware of,
Okay,
so, all right,
thank you.
all right.
Any other questions for the gentleman?
I don't think so.
You wanna make a motion, or what's your thoughts on it? Are you comfortable with this application, or?
I mean, you know, as far as how much is removed and how they're gonna do it, I mean, if it's just a, I
Well,
don't know,
they have a area highlighted,
I think last time I mentioned what the landscaper said he would use, a 12,000, not more than a 12,000, I'm not sure what it was.
yeah, it's a small rubber track
I mean,
machine
that's-
for sure,
that's-
but,
that's the area he has highlighted.
yeah, 120 feet, we measured it out, it's right to
Okay.
where that pipe is, where the
Mhm.
disturbance right along the channel was, where they took the olive out, I guess.
I mean, he would bring it in on our driveway. He wouldn't be going through wetland to do that.
Well, no, it just, you know, anything you do, you know, that channel is considered a wetland.
Right,
You're,
I
you know,
understand that.
Within 50 feet
Mhm.
of that, even if you're not in it, so
Right,
that's why you're here.
right.
It's basically coming from the pond to where the pipe is that comes from the driveway to the channel.
Do you have the drawing with you? I could show you. Oh,
What's the nature of that 120 foot? Is the wetland pretty much confined to the water course?
I mean, so it extends away from it towards Old Poverty Road. Like I said,
Okay.
there's like, you know, kind of swampy area through there
On the far side of
on
it?
the far side of the
Okay.
channel. So you have the pond, the channel's closest to his driveway and his
Yep.
house. Swamp area, and then Old Poverty Road kind of comes to a point, as you see in the drawing. So I mean,
So can he access it without,
yeah, from his driveway side.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's what
you know,
I'm-
he's in the upland review, like we said,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah.
grass there. I mean, you know,
yeah, the driveway side.
can reach it easily with a small machine.
Yeah, I mean, we have a gravel driveway. The driveway side is lawn.
Yeah, there's
On
lawn
the
between
brooks-
the driveway.
driveway
and
side of the brook has
the-
lawn.
The channel call.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know where we, or regulations stand on something like that. I mean, is maintenance, I guess,
Yeah, it really is.
you know, in my opinion. When we were out there, it's just kinda like, well, why are we doing this? I didn't see the pipe or the drain, to be
Well,
honest with you.
when
so-
I went to look, they dug out somewhat before we took away that Russian olive tree,
Okay,
and then there were very heavy rains and a lot of mud went
Yep.
back into the
yeah, it
area.
looked like it eroded a little bit, but,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, if that's what's going on there, I don't see why taking some of that out. Cause it's all like reed grass and it's all filled in. You can see, there's still water going through there.
120 feet's a lot.
I'm sorry?
It just sounded like 120 feet of it was a lot, but I haven't seen it, so.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, I
it's-
think that's
It's all
because
filled in.
it's the distance from the pond down to where this other pipe
Yeah.
If it's
exits.
pretty flat, that's.
If you
not
just take that spot out, I don't think it's gonna
Won't
do
try.
anything for draining it out. If you lower that down, like Thad and I had talked about, if you lower that down, maybe that would pull some of the water out of that swamp area. That's the only consideration I'm thinking about. But I mean, if he's just taking the, you know, muck and, you know, sediment out of
I
there,
have no problem with that.
you know, yeah, I don't see any issue with that, and the water's gonna come back to where it is anyways.
You know, that brook varies tremendously
I
from
can
one
imagine.
season to the other.
Yeah, I bet.
There are summers where it's been almost dry, but not this year. This year it flowed the whole time.
Yeah.
And the pond actually maintains almost,
Yeah, it didn't look
Even
like it was
in-
silting in or anything like that.
no, and it maintains the same level seasonally, almost the same every year, no matter how, whether it's very rainy. I mean, it's a
Well,
little
you're
different.
kind of
It's
in the
very dry, it
drainage.
goes down a little, but not a lot.
You're kind of
It's
in the
fairly deep, that
swale
pond
there,
actually.
I guess. You know, you got.
Because I
hills
once
all
tried
around
to
you.
figure out how deep it was, and it was fairly deep at the middle.
Oh, yeah, right at
Like
the edge,
the
it was
oar
3,
of
4,
my,
5 feet.
my little boat can't reach down to the bottom.
Do you have any more tree cutting or clearing to do associated with this?
Not on that side of the house. No, I just, the
Nothing
re-
within 50 feet of what,
No.
anything that could be considered wetlands?
no.
Also, a
Not
lot
that I
of the
could think
property
of.
there is still in the upland review, so I think what he's asking is, are you doing anything else other than the clearing of the channel?
No, the only trees I've ever taken down were dead trees. In the right next to that spot, you saw there were, just like, I don't know, 3 trees or 3 small
Yeah,
trees that
3
fell over
standing
each
there.
other.
Yep.
Which to me is somewhat unsightly, especially now that we took away that Russian olive.
Yeah, they're like half, yeah, you don't have limbs on.
I mean, they're very close to the brook.
Is
but
that plan to come out, I guess is what we're asking?
Well, I would like to take them out unless you tell me I cannot take them out.
What's gonna come out?
So there's like 3 small trees, maybe 6
Oh.
6 inches, 8 inches diameter, not very tall. I don't know if they're hemlocks or not, they look,
I don't think those are hemlocks, but
but, right next to where that pipe comes out. I mean, he'd be right there, but.
On the driveway side?
on
no, the
driveway
other side.
Well, in between the driveway and the channel. You have what is it, 15, 20 feet in between the two?
No, it's in between, it's on the side of the channel that's between the channel and the road.
Correct, but right, you know.
It's almost, it's right next to the
yeah, it's
channel.
right where his pipe comes out, that's not very far from that.
No,
15
It's
15 feet at
across the
most.
channel.
Do you know if that was a man-made pond?
It had to have been. Or
No,
at least
and-
they dammed it up there or something.
No, I was told that it was there, and it
Okay.
was, or the
Okay.
original owners dredged it and made it deeper.
Okay,
But I think it's been there.
cause it seems like that, you know, when you're standing there, you can see the pond comes up to a certain point and then it kinda drops into that marsh, swamp area. It looks like maybe that, you know, sort of berm.
On any drawing I've ever seen related to the
Yeah, it
house,
could've
that
been
was there.
forever ago, but either way.
I don't think it was totally man-made. I think they embellished it
Okay,
originally, but I'm talking
Improved
about
it, yeah.
1975.
okay. I think what I'm getting from this discussion is the commission doesn't want any activity between the water course and the road. As long as you can access it from your driveway, I think,
Yep.
I think we're pretty good.
Yeah, there's no reason for them to go
I'm-
through the other
I'm
side.
asking these questions so I'll know what kind of conditions to put on the
Mhm.
approval.
My one question to you is this, is there a time of year you think it's best to do this? to disturb things the least. I would think
Driest.
the driest.
Yeah,
The driest would be the best, but, I mean,
but you never know anymore.
No, you don't know.
What about winter versus,
if the ground was frozen, then at least you're not disturbing right up to the
Yeah,
edge of
exactly.
it. That's the only
Yeah.
thing.
because I thought it might be better to do it in the winter, if the guy's willing to do it.
I don't think we need to put a time element on it myself. I don't think the scope of the project is such that we need to be terribly concerned with this.
Just do it from the driveway and not in the work course,
Yeah.
shouldn't be a big deal.
There's no reason for him to go on the other side. I mean, he'll have to get the machine positioned however he positions it, but
Yep.
I don't see why he can't position it from
In
the,
between the driveway and the channel, so. to
right.
speak. Yeah.
Well, I don't
Yeah,
think
as long
he'd,
as
I
you're
don't
not
think
going
he'd,
Past that,
I think it would be impossible for him to go in the other way unless he tore down trees.
you'd be surprised.
Tell them not to, right?
Tell them not to.
No, well, he'll listen to me.
Yep.
You're paying them, so they'll
I'm
listen
paying.
to you.
Yeah. No, he does some of my other landscape work. So I think he's pretty experienced with this, and I think it should be fine as far as that. Anything else?
I think that's it.
I think we're good.
Okay.
All right, wanna make a motion?
I'll motion to approve it.
Okay, we have a motion to approve application 1676. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Rob seconds. Now, I just want to have a little discussion about a couple things on the resolution. Number one, Ty put in about indicating the areas of disturbance and requesting a wetlands delineation for the file. Do we feel that's necessary for this application? What I did was I wrote in up top, as far as to submit a plan indicating the areas of disturbance, and I added a notation, 120 feet of the water course, to be improved from the outlet to the drain pipe coming from the driveway circle. That's probably good enough as far as marking up on a plan.
Yeah.
If we just put it in writing that way is kind of what I was thinking. And I think
Coming from the pond
The pond
Down
to
from
the
the
pipe.
outlet of the pond
to the
down
pipe.
120 feet
To
to
where
the
the
pipe
outlet of the
from
pipe
the
is.
driveway circle,
right.
right? So I think we might be better off putting it in writing than having it on a map or whatever. So I added that.
Wetland markers, I mean, that, pretty
Um,
sure where the wetland is there. I mean, I don't know.
You'd have to have it marked then to do that, so
Before you did it.
you need a soil scientist and
I don't know that this is where it's making.
Yeah, I don't think it's-
I think we're good with that myself, but.
Yep.
So I'm going to strike the part about the wetlands delineation, and I'm going to strike the part about the plan submitting. We already have a plan with it on there. So I guess we can just strike that whole first one.
I mean, I plan to be present when he's doing this,
Okay,
so,
all right.
I mean, I know what you're getting at. I mean, I assume, he will be, believe me, he will be trying to do the minimum.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion and we have a second. Any further discussion, questions, comments?
I think we need a motion on the amended plan,
Oh.
amended resolution.
Okay,
I'll motion the amended plan.
motion to approve according to our amended resolution. A second. Rob, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, sir. Okay. Thank you.
Good luck.
So I received something written
Yes. Yeah, you will.
Approximately what the timing?
I'm
So
sorry?
timing.
It'll be posted in the newspaper, as a legal notice, and 15 days following that, you'll get a letter indicating, so probably within the next month, you'll know exactly your start date when you're eligible, as long as there's nobody who comes forward from the public that appeals, which is unlikely.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you very much.
Yep, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
502, let's see, application 1677, 502 Southford Road. That was an emergency repair, right?
I have to say that I was very impressed with the job that they did out there. Both those, there's two culverts.
Big culverts.
Big culverts, and considering the fact that it wasn't done by the town, it was done by their personal finances and everything, they did a very good job.
Good.
Do we know why it wasn't done by the town? Like why, do we know why it was done via their own money and not the town?
Private driveway.
Private driveway,
Yep.
okay,
Yeah, it's a shared driveway for, I don't know, 3 or 4 houses there, right?
Yes.
okay.
So, yeah, they have, that's
They would have to.
their own road.
Discussion among the homeowners, who's gonna pay how much.
Yeah, well, they seemed like, everybody came out when we were there, and they, there was no,
They actually had a maintenance agreement in
Oh, nice.
effect on the land record, so it had already been determined that should something happen on the driveway, how it would be.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, it was good.
We've had more than one argument over, I'm not paying for that.
Yeah, no.
Well, they
this
actually
was
had
ideal.
the grass was already grown. There was, green grass on both culverts.
Good, you have everything you need in the record for that one?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that went
Well,
very
then I'll
smoothly.
make a motion then to approve, application 1677, 502 Southford Road. Bob seconds. Further discussion? All in favor?
alright,
Okay, motion carries. We have one more. This is from the town, application 1678, Old Field Road. That's a culvert replacement over near, let's see, is that the one near Heritage Road, right?
Yeah.
Just down from
It's near
Heritage
Gainfield.
Heritage Road?
It's closer to Heritage Road than it is Gainfield.
Well, maybe I'll listen to what they have to say first.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah.
It's amazing, don't learn it first.
What's the matter? We got different copies?
No, I think we got the same, he just delivered these today.
Yeah, we did drop off 4 full-size prints today.
It's John Mack, the Stewart Summers Company, representing the town of Southbury,
Why don't you bring a couple
and
over to
Charlie
the side over there?
is handing out
You doing good?
11 by 17.
So what is the impetus to replace this?
There's a picture right there next to,
Are these corrugated metal pipes?
no, they were at one time, many years ago, but then they.
Precast concrete you're putting in, right?
They're RCP existing. The end wall is on the bottom. The reinforcement is shown inside the pipe. There's 2 twin pipes. This is
Currently-
There's some cement pipes?
Yeah,
Right.
currently 2 RCP pipes, 6 foot diameter inside, and they're approximately 40 feet long, 38 to 40 feet. What was there before, it was kind of odd, we looked at the as-built for the water line, and there was metal pipes there back in the 70s. I don't have when these were installed, but the issue was, what happened in one of the storms they had in the last 6 months, because of the 2 pipes there, some debris came down, and in the middle, they had division, it got caught there, and it came over the road. And so they looked at the pipes, on the inside, you can see like you said, the rebar starting to show in the bottom, it gets worn out. So they wanted to put it on the list of things to replace for the town, for the culverts. So they're looking at 1 unit, 1 open unit, so it's 2 6-foot diameter pipes. And we're looking at putting a box culvert in, so the bottom would be solid concrete. We're looking at burying that 1 foot, so we'd have river stone in there 1 foot high, the culvert would be level, okay?
diameter is, inside size, the height is 8 by 14, but a foot would be buried.
So the opening would be 7 by 14.
It's not that.
It's,
huge.
no, it's not huge.
No, it's not that much larger than it is now, but what may
Yeah,
happen
the
is,
6-foot pipes are separate.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
divider
2
in the
feet
middle.
between the 6,
yeah, so it fits.
so
The width
it's
is
in the
almost
same footprint of the two
I'm
twin
just saying,
pipes.
that's a big,
Oh, it
But
is,
it
yeah,
is,
but it's
yeah.
not,
But
does
it's
that
not
have to come in
huge.
in one piece?
that's not that big.
Well,
It's
they're
14.
8-foot sections and,
Okay,
No,
so
it'll
you
probably
fit
be
it
in five.
together.
yes.
Generally 5 pieces, 5, 6 pieces. We already, I didn't speak to, but Brian Calvert spoke to the crane operator, and he already moved poles in the area for it. So it's getting all ready to put in, and the gas line, there's a gas line that crosses over the top of it. There's only 1.5 feet above the 2 pipes now, and there's a gas line there. So what we're trying to find out is, while we have an 8 by 14 shown there, which is really only 7 by 14 where the opening, because we're gonna fill the bottom with stone, we may have to go a foot lower and a foot wider.
To accommodate the gas line?
The gas line.
Well, I'm trying
The
to,
coverage of the
they're
gas.
talking about putting a gas line hooking on the outside. Right now it goes over in the steel pipe, I think, but it's probably encased in the steel pipe.
And there's a water line, 12-inch water line that we're not touching, that's below the down gradient of it, so.
So the gas line goes over the RCP now, the water line juts out on the downhill side and goes underneath the stream. So we don't see it doing anything with the water line, we're trying not to touch that, but the gas line will be capped off on each side because it is supplied from both sides, the gas line, it's just like they have it connected to make it a circle, in case there's ever an issue. So they can cap that off during the summer, and then I'm trying to allow it to go back over the top of the road instead of going underneath the stream, which isn't what we're looking for right now, or being attached to the side of the parapet wall for the culvert. So what they could do is they can take the gas line, and instead of going over where we don't have enough cover possibly, they would hook it to the side of the bridge, and there'd be brackets put on the side of the bridge, and we traverse alongside the bridge and back into the road again. But I don't really like that, and we'll try not to do that. So what you have before you, the size won't change much, but it might get a foot wider, a foot lower.
But I mean, the way it is right now, it's not buried more than a foot anyway.
No, it's actually, the way we have it right now, it's only above about half a foot.
So you're saying that when you put this new one in, you're not gonna have a foot buried in?
Right now, we have proposed is only approximately like half to 3/4 of a foot. We know that, and I'm trying, before I get to change all the plans around, I'm trying to find out from the gas company what they would accept. And we can adjust the grades a little bit. So right now, there's a foot pitch between one side of the pipe and the other, because the RCP, it's pipe. We're looking at putting it flat to keep the stone in the bottom so it doesn't come out, less likely to come out of the bottom of the stone. So we would put it flat, and we're about within a half foot of the invert now, but I could lower it a foot and make it work. I have to see what they'll allow above the pipe though, for the gas line.
So we're actually sort of approving this in concept, but the detail may change.
It's not gonna change much.
It's not gonna change a lot.
Same position, it might get a foot wider, the culvert, and it might go, a foot deeper.
You may drop it a foot.
Yeah, we might drop it a foot, is what
So you're making it wider to accommodate this, to have the same surface area.
So we get a little more cover
Yeah.
over it, so what we'll do is we'll actually make the height a little less,
And-
width a little
and-
more.
Right, and then you can put the pipe, hopefully put the pipe on top
Yeah,
instead
and
Yes.
we might drop it half
which
a
would
foot.
protect the pipe a little bit.
Mhm.
That's right.
Yeah, it's not exposed, yep.
So, it's all precast, so what would happen is they would dig, what's out there now is the 2 RCPs, there's like, block walls. It's not a precast
Yeah,
wall,
look at the
it's
picture.
concrete block walls. So they would have to take out the walls, take out the pipes that are there, we're gonna look at pumping over the
So
road.
they showing the
So
bottom
we
of the
put a,
culvert side, foot.
a 36-inch pipe
You guys weren't out there.
with stone around it. The water would flow in there, we'd pump it over the road during the night. We would let it just go
But
back
inside of
over
there.
the natural course of the stream.
No, just up here's the lip.
Just the lip.
And
and the footings are generally 2.5 feet deep that they put in.
I seen when they had these over
So,
the bottom ones.
They
why
would
not use
take that
something
out,
like that?
put the
With
footings
wood?
in, put
I'm
stone
gonna-
in, so it's all level,
Good question.
and then the
Yeah, they look great.
precast structure would come and they put it in.
Sorry, what was the 2.5 feet?
The footings,
The footing?
At the ends,
So,
Carl.
so what would happen, when they take out the pipe, there's generally a level where they're gonna set the structure on. And underneath that level, you put a cutoff wall. So what happens, if this was the culvert right here, there'd be a wall that went down 2.5 feet of, keep the water from going
So
underneath.
it doesn't undermine the floor.
So Charlie, I have a question. If there's a concern for the water going under the box culvert, why not have an open bottom culvert?
The reason we don't like the open bottom culvert is because you're looking at the structure, the
Can we have one
structural
discussion,
integrity
please?
is on one side and the other.
Yeah,
With a solid bottom, it's supported by this whole floor, you know what I'm saying? You don't have to worry about one side structurally, the weight of that cross section. So with the solid bottom, it would
so they don't make an open bottom that would work here, right?
what's that?
They don't make an open bottom that would work here?
No, you could do an open bottom. I just don't think
And
it's.
then you're
Okay.
replacing this one catch basin?
But you're gonna have to, if you do an open bottom, you're gonna have to, more reinforcement of the foundations on each end, right?
Well, you pull
You have
down
to
the
do
basin
maybe
and the
pilings.
cement back it up.
That's
That's why I'm asking.
More piling, so what we have to do is just drop the structure, put stone in there, river stone.
Right, and then you put the curtain, basically a curtain wall in front of it to avoid the undermine.
Yeah, and that could be a problem when you have an open bottom. What happens, you have an open bottom, you still gotta go down like 2.5, 3 feet on the side because the bottom. So
Yeah, you
Yeah,
have
to
to.
reinforce it, yeah. But it wouldn't lift it up, I can't imagine.
No, no.
I'm sorry.
What are we looking at, Mr. Mayor?
We're looking at the road drainage, I think.
Yep.
Two conversations going on,
That's
it's a
one.
little hard to follow.
Yep.
This?
Is this the one you're talking? Yeah, on that side. Yeah, this is going up to here.
Oh, that comes over from the library?
No, it goes, from Heritage.
From Heritage
Oh,
Road
yeah,
towards
the
the
other side. Okay.
stoplight. Takes all the water off of that intersection.
It's a buried pipe, it's probably been there a very long time. That, it's kinda rotted out in the bottom, Carl.
Yeah.
And we're not looking at attacking that right now because you have to do the whole road up the intersection area. That's not part of the problem.
So,
That's S1.
so you're going to install a, what was it, 3-foot around pipe to catch the water in? What was that, 6 feet? You're gonna install, let's see.
On the upstream side.
Yeah.
Oh,
Where's the size of it?
John has,
I thought I-
he had 2 foot, I asked him to change it to 3, he did.
Where, this
Yep.
sump we're talking about?
Yeah, it's on, sheet S2.
Wait a minute here.
That's
It's a
two.
good plan.
We're talking about the sump to collect the water to be pumped.
To get around, water.
And you're also gonna hopefully do this during dry season.
Yeah, we try getting it right. You know, and it's the same thing like they said. It could be right, like, look, it looks good.
So how do you keep the material from moving down the brook?
Well,
I'm not seeing any,
no, what
I'm not seeing any, detention.
No,
I'm not seeing a silt
There's a
pond.
berm, there's a 2 foot wide berm. That's gonna deflect it into a vertical pipe that's perforated in stone, and then they're gonna pump it.
Yeah, but on the other side,
Okay, so.
I'm talking about how do you keep all this material from migrating
On
down
the
the
other
brook?
side, you have the berm, right?
Because you're talking about pumping it during the day and letting it run through there at night.
Yeah, what I found out is I did it a couple of
So-
days, I just let it run overnight, so what happens is, what we're trying to do is get the, pump the water around so we get the debris out of there with the least amount of,
silt going upstream. We get that out of there, that'll probably be one night. And what we would do is at the end of that night, we put stone in and let the water flow over. Clean stone, let the water flow over, because it's not worth running the pump overnight. It's just, the next morning, you'd have to wait like an hour and a half to get the water back down. It takes a while. And you get the water back down to that level, and you pump it, and then you'd be back down to that stone level, and you start your construction again. I think it could be done in one day, but it might be two.
Well, if I remember looking at it, when you go downstream, you've got large riprap, I mean stones on both sides, both the embankments and you've got a lot of, it doesn't look like there's any erosion on that side of the bridge
It
or
widens
the
out,
culvert.
right?
Widens out, it's got all those big huge rocks on both sides. So any kind of erosion that's gonna take place is probably gonna take place on the up.
I was thinking more siltation from
Coming
removing the,
out.
removing the
Yeah.
cement and everything, and having all that loose material there, and then having water flowing over it off and on.
Yeah, so that'll be,
That material's gonna migrate, and I'm just wondering if there's a way that we can catch it so that it doesn't.
yeah, so what'll happen is that'll be, you start the pumps, you start removing, you start pumping water around, you start removing the structures there and the concrete block. There is gonna be some silt, obviously, that's gonna get by, it always does. But when it's getting pumped around on the downhill side, there's a berm. We can ask one of the neighbors for settling, a bigger settling basin off to the side, but I don't think, if you look at the site, if you berm up an area in the stream, I think it's gonna do the same thing, you know? I mean, you put a 3-foot berm up, which John's got. it'll do the
Have
same
you
thing.
estimated what the CFS is for that brook
Depends
during
what
an
time.
average, average?
No, we're gonna take a look at that, we didn't have time.
But I kinda question whether your 3-foot diameter something
it-
there is gonna handle
It
that.
depends what time of the year it is or how the season is, yeah.
If we have, I cross this all the time.
Yeah.
It's as deep. If we have reasonable rain, that 3-foot sump is gonna be
Well,
completely
we wouldn't be
overwhelmed.
working after 3 inches of
And
rain.
I'm not talking a quarter inch. If we get a
Yeah.
2-inch rain, it's gonna be,
But what we're talking about, to tell you the truth, is I've done these,
We did, Oak Street right upstream of that,
they ripped it out in a day.
and they did that
They can rip that out in a day.
quite fast. And they
And-
did the same thing, they pumped it over.
When is this scheduled to go to? If you were talking about summertime.
I can't, it's the town, I can say. But obviously, when it's gonna be done, is when it's gonna be like, hey, the weather's good for 4 days, that's it, you know? Once they get the base in there with the clean stone, that water can run right over it.
well, then it'll be okay. Once
Yeah, you can let it just run,
It's
cause
the debris from the demolition as much as anything.
it is, yeah. So what happens, I see that, it's like a day, it could be a hair longer, but if you can get it all out of there in a day and get the clean stone in there and let the water flow over it, you can leave it that way for a week, because the road's gonna be closed off. I don't know if I told you that, the road's gonna be
Yeah.
closed off. So we don't have to worry about that, really, we just gotta get it set, with clean stone in, and then the next thing would be get set for the footing. So one day I think they can rip it out, the other day they're gonna put the footings in. And then they gotta get it set by the end of that day. So they're gonna be looking at the weather, saying, hey, today's a good day to put the footings in. And the footings, they can put in not with a crane, they can put them with a larger machine, because they're way too small, they cut off the rest. It's just timing, right, really, that's all it is. I don't see it as a,
But
it's not
certainly,
huge.
certainly doable.
Yeah, it's not huge.
No way they're gonna do it in a day, you know that.
No, ripping it out, I think they could, but they might want it to take a little longer for somebody.
What about the utilities you gotta deal with? That's gonna,
Yeah,
that's
there's a
gonna
water-
prolong things
Well,
a little bit,
the
isn't it?
water line is down, it's shown on there, the water line is down below to the east, I mean, sorry, to the west.
Downstream.
Yeah,
Is it
down.
attached to the wind walls?
No, it's not, it's underneath the stream right now.
Oh, it goes under the stream?
The gas line comes over the units on top of the edge of the road.
Or the twin,
The downstream
They're gonna cut
side.
those off.
on the
And
downstream
already,
side, yeah.
probably already moved the poles where the
But you said the gas line's not an issue because you're gonna cut it off and block it, right?
Yeah, they're gonna cut it off, and, the thing is this, when it's gonna have to get hooked up, back up again, so that's what we're
Yeah.
trying to cover.
But in the meantime, they'll be cut off there
the gas line is marked out there.
What about that other drainage pipe that's just upstream?
That won't be touched.
I thought you said something about you wanted to change the, you wanted to change the position of that thing.
The pipe, it's only a 15-inch pipe.
Right.
I don't see any reason.
Somebody told me that
Yeah,
they
I
wanted
think
to
I
move
did.
it.
Yeah.
Somebody's talking about it. Is this up here?
Yeah.
This up here, John? We should take a look. You're not taking that.
Yeah, it's pointed upstream, I think, is
Yeah.
what that was the issue, yeah.
Yeah, we did not,
Yeah, we're still in there gonna replace it.
4 foot, just put a manhole there. I just don't like it going down there. I don't think that makes sense. It was one of the things where they was town drain pipe, but it's going uphill.
Yeah.
Water starts flowing, it goes into the
Instead of
pipe.
putting another, you know, set another piece in, they just laid the pipe and called it good. There's only a pipe on the uphill side on one side of the brook, right? Just on that one side where we're standing? Yeah, it's just a swale on the other side. It actually points upstream a little bit where the outfall is.
Yeah, so it's one of the things we noticed out there that we should be nice to change.
And even at like 45, it'd be good.
Yeah.
This is all within the road setback?
The property line we're still tying into, so, Brian's talked to the 2 neighbors already, but we still have to tie in the property line if any easements are needed.
Okay. So other than not really knowing how much water is coming down there,
No, we did
No,
a,
we do,
we did
I
a
mean-
study.
No, we did a drainage study, but what it is we're talking about how, the velocity, how much water a day, really, the reason we're doing precast is to be done quick.
okay.
And it just has to be done, I mean, a day, you know, like you have to schedule each day.
As part of the application, the area, the drainage area, the drainage tributary area. And shows the,
Yeah, I think he's talking about doing it when we
well,
work.
small center, right,
No, he's looking at pumping the water over
then
the
you just
road.
add another pump.
Yeah, it just seemed to me that like what you had there might be undersized for that brook. That was my only thought.
And
As
it was,
part of the application.
it was a 24 before. No, I just,
So we said it was designed for a 100-year storm.
I talked to a couple of guys.
But-
We have no way.
What's that?
Which we have about once a month.
Once a month?
But
Yeah, it is pretty good.
the whole idea that, as you expressed it to us when we were out there, was that you were going to take a look at the weather in advance.
That's what
And
we
you're
got
gonna
to do,
pick-
yeah.
So you had the flexibility to,
We're working on a day, you're like, a day or 2 days, you gotta say, hey, this day, we're gonna try to move in that, by getting it stabilized overnight, so the pump doesn't have to run. I believe in the pump not all the way around, there's no reason. I'm just looking at failure. If you put stone in, and you're able to get the river bottom back, and you got stone, clean stone, washed stone, you let the water flow again, the next morning, you come, it's clear. Yeah, I've seen it, it's clear. And then the next day, you do the same thing.
I mean, you're still hoping that, or planning for somewhat, you know, not a big rainstorm, not 6 inches of rain or anything else coming down that.
And then what would happen is we would set the base for the units. When the base is set, that means there's clean stone in there, the footings are in, it's just an open channel, just like the stream is there now. Open channel. It could sit that, when that's done, it could set that way for 4 days, nothing should happen to it, okay? Obviously, if you got a big stone, because we're trying to use 3/4 inch stone at the bottom, so it sets nice in there, you don't want like too big a stone.
Underneath the
Underneath
Yeah,
precast piece.
yeah,
So
so
you have
the
stone, after they take the old piece out, the stone
So-
goes in,
Then you
the
have the toe
precast.
walls.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think what you're saying is, when you get that stone underneath, the water can go over
It's
that.
good. Now, the only thing that could happen is, because it's smaller stone, but you do have the
Base.
cutoff walls and the footings are already in now, so there's walls holding that stone in. But if you got a huge rainstorm, you know, just saying, in that 5-day period, that 3/4 inch stone could wash out, obviously. But you have to watch it. There's nothing perfect, but you have to watch it, you have to go day by day. You know?
Do you have to compact that stone?
Yeah, it's just a vibratory, it's only 1 foot, the stone. It's really just to set the unit, you know? I mean, it'd be nice to use larger stone,
Leveling
but
course, yeah.
you can't work with larger stone, it's like, you know, you
Yeah.
can spread it out, and it's really just to set the structure, and the reason we do the 4-sided, if we do that, we don't have to do pilings, you know, you see all these bridges built, they gotta do pilings, they gotta have structural engineers out there.
You have to pour the footings front and back?
No, these aren't poured, it's a precast.
Everything's
Everything's
precast?
This is like, we work a day, we get it clean, we get it ready.
Okay.
Work a day, get it clean, get it ready.
And then bolt them together.
Yeah, it goes pretty good.
Any more questions? All right, I'll make a motion to approve application 1678 according to our draft resolution.
I'll second it.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, thanks.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah, we'll bird dog in a little bit. What's that? Yeah. Let's get it.
Yep. What else you got going on? Anything else for the town coming up, or?
For the town, they were talking about another culvert, I'll talk to you tomorrow. There's another culvert coming up before the gate.
They had, you know, the town a couple years ago, they repaired a few of those culverts by lining them.
Yeah.
Remember that? Is that still a thing? I
I
mean,
think we have enough.
I haven't seen one, I know on Scout Road they were talking about
Yeah, I
lining
think-
one, which I think they might have. We did Scout Road down below, I think they might have lined one.
This is an extra one.
I know they did the one on East Flat Hill Road when you start to go up. I know they did that one.
The one with the waterfall?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they did that one, and I wanna say there was 1 or 2 other ones they did around the same time.
Yeah, maybe somebody should take a look at it. I'll talk.
Just curious,
Depends if you start with the,
whether that procedure had gone out of favor or.
No, it is a good idea. The main thing about this one was this, it came down.
It had the divider in the middle.
Bam.
Yeah, I get
Yeah,
that.
so that's really what it is.
Yeah.
And then the wind walls are all blocked, you know, they
Yeah,
start
they're all
deteriorating,
cold.
you know.
Yeah.
But besides that, the pipes were pretty straight on this one. It was nice and straight, they were in pretty good shape, bottoms were worn out, they
There's
put
no
the line.
shoulders,
What's that?
and no shoulder.
Yeah.
And there's only like these wooden posts.
And you also said that you weren't gonna touch there's a water pipe that was coming out on the other side that's rusted.
Yeah, right now, they might replace part of it, but the thing is, the gas line, the water pipe's in the middle, and the gas line goes on one side of the water pipe, the water line comes up the other, so they can only go so far without getting into that. And really, the time to do that is when you do the whole road over, when the asphalt, you know? Because you'd have to rip it all off the intersection. So everything's like piece. And we did allow on this, just, so you know, there's a sidewalk that comes off the library, it turns into the road. And if you go up over the intersection of Heritage, it shows on the GIS, you can see the sidewalk ends there. We're not proposing a sidewalk right now, because, right next to the, culvert, there's a little swale. I don't know what reason. There's a pipe that goes underneath the driveway, I think there's, water comes off Heritage. And it's just something small, but we're allowing some sidewalk.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right, have a good day. Thank you.
Night.
Okay, new business? None, huh? No news is good news so far? Other business, okay, we had a meeting, I was called to a meeting with the first selectman, Ty, and Jessica from the planning department, and the crux of the meeting is, we haven't had a functioning commission for aquifer protection for some time, and apparently the state has mandated that we need to have something in place to handle this. But correct me if I'm wrong.
That's correct.
The aquifer protection was rolled into the responsibilities of the Water Pollution Control Authority. So what the discussion was about was leaving the Water Pollution Control Authority in charge of the septic sewer systems in town, which is kind of what their thing is. And he was asking our agency to take over the responsibilities for the aquifer protection part of it. There's still, excuse me? It does kind of make sense. There is still a number of questions to be, determined as far as how they're going to set it up from an administration point of view, because apparently it's not supposed to be part of the wetlands. Is that what I got from?
It's not set up in the ordinance right now. It's under the Water Pollution Control Authority. So right now, the land use attorney is drafting a new ordinance that needs to go to town meeting to be approved to allow the Inland Wetlands Commission to be combined.
Okay.
Or
That's where I was confused,
Yeah.
because I thought that was a state mandate that it couldn't be.
It
It
is. So the DEP, similar to the inland wetlands, has the authority and creates the regulations for both the aquifer and the wetlands. So you kind of take on, like, as far as the Wetlands Commission goes, you take on their model regulations and then you'll tweak them. Same exact thing happens with the Aquifer Protection Agency. And you need to adopt these regulations that they put forward. The town of Southbury has not done that yet because under the agency it exists, it's not a staffed agency, so they've kind of failed to be able to handle that as well as the Wetlands Commission probably could. So you're very similar as how it's set up. The Wetlands Commission and the Aquifer Protection are both under the DEP. They both have to be, town of Southbury has to be under compliance for that. And
Okay.
currently Aquifer we're not in compliance with. So
Okay.
that's the goal here is to get the town in compliance, and the Wetlands Agency is the ideal agency to be able to do that.
Or we can even start looking at things like, fuel tanks, in-ground fuel tanks and stuff like that.
So there's two areas in Southbury that have the aquifer, and there are not a lot of businesses and not a lot of things going on in these areas that have the criteria that you have to worry about that need to be registered. So ONG is one of them, and I think that's the only one right now. So basically, or if somebody new was to move in, and they would have, there's a list of, I think, 36 different items. If you were doing hazardous, keeping up different materials, then you would have to, like, a gas tank, it would just have to be kept safely.
So the answer is yes, if that came up.
If it came up, yes, but like I said, it's not a huge undertaking, like you would be.
Settlers Park. That's all I refer under that. So are we gonna need to look at the chemical? We already do, but look at chemical usage there for the fields and all that stuff?
No, nothing like that. No, there's a list, I mean, there's a whole training course.
Yeah, that's what I was kind
Yeah,
of getting to.
so-
The only way I really,
Yeah.
see this affecting us, I don't think it's gonna add to the workload much, because I don't think
Not
they've
gonna
had an application before them for a long time. But we will have to get some additional education
Training would be.
in order to,
Yeah,
in order to do it, so.
UConn Clear has a class that you can do online, so I could send everybody the link
That
if
would be
they
perfect.
want.
My question would be is, as far as I understand it, every river and brook and stream in Connecticut is listed as a class 1, 2, 3, or 4. With one being
Yeah.
drinkable, you can put your cup in the water and you can drink it, and then, 4 or 5, whatever, is like the Naugatuck River coming out of Waterbury with all the sewage. you know, so that's not drinkable. It's, the only thing you can use it for is putting out fires. So the rivers and brooks are already classified within our town as to different, whether they're whether they're drinkable or whether they're not drinkable, or, these different categories. So are they talking about just enforcing it, or are they talking about trying to improve the aquifer?
Yeah,
Another set of regulations, I think, right, is what we're.
Yeah, and I think that you're expanding it too large. There's just 2 designated areas in town that are concentrated and delineated as the aquifer protection areas in Southbury by the state.
Yeah,
So
we
it
have two
wouldn't
areas
really,
in
it wouldn't
town.
really have anything to do with surface waters.
Yeah,
It's
you're
just
not,
subsurface,
it's not as
well water
wide
type.
as you're
what-
thinking. Yeah, and it's very specific.
Excuse me?
You
Yeah, we
will
all
get
do.
the course.
We all need it.
Yes, I'll send the link to
Well,
everybody.
we have neighbors that, my well is 375 feet. We have neighbors that have 450 feet and they went dry. So these aquifers, they're not a nice little.
You could move 2 feet away and have a whole
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
thing, just the way it is.
First selectman had that same issue.
And she sure did. That whole hill is
Well, it's
screwy.
Yeah.
Well, where we are, over by, more towards the training school, 675 feet, we only got half a gallon a minute.
Right.
And then you got the plats are
Move up
so
a
much
grade.
manganese in
Move
there,
up
you
a
can't
grade.
use it for anything, so, at a couple hundred feet, so.
All right, well, I just wanted to bring you up to date on that anyway, so not hearing a violent objection to the idea, we'll just sort of,
They have a choice.
well, I mean, we probably do,
What's
but,
the other option?
it seems to kind of make sense,
Whole
so.
other commission for that? I mean,
Yeah, they
Yes.
might have to
not that I'm
yeah,
suggesting
find-
that, I'm just saying
finding
that
members
that's
or
the
something, I
alternative.
don't know. It seems like it's not working the way it is, so
So they're looking
ideally,
they're looking for some place to get it in compliance, so.
Yeah.
And we're looking at all, most of the stuff anyway, so it shouldn't make that much difference.
I wouldn't think so.
It's gonna be.
And like I said, I don't think it's gonna amount to much.
Well permits and all that.
No, it's not
This is
as
just
big
these
as that
specific
at
areas.
all. Very
Okay.
specific areas and very specific activities
Okay.
that need to be, and then, as far as inspections and enforcements, then the wetlands enforcement officer's already been assigned, or the zoning enforcement has already been assigned to deal with that kind of stuff
Well,
as
that's good,
well,
'cause that
so.
person has no work to do anyway.
I'm telling you, so, yeah, exactly, but so you have a staff that's already exists, and it's like, that's,
All
should
right.
be okay.
Do you have, anything you'd like to bring to us for?
The only thing that came up this month is Thad actually noted about some activity on Old Waterbury Road that he saw, and at the beginning of the road, and it was found that it was the town doing some regular maintenance, and in talking to the Public Works Director, there's many areas that they're working on, detention basins and culvert cleanings and whatnot. It's my understanding that you pretty much, it's your position to allow them to go forward with this kind of maintenance without having to come to the commission. However, Jerry did offer, if you wanted, he would come and make a presentation of what their plans are. I don't know if that's
I don't think it's.
something that you're interested
I don't
in.
think
So
it's
much of that
necessary.
stuff, we told
That's-
them years ago, it's normal maintenance, right?
Yeah.
Remember, Paul?
Yeah.
Go ahead and do it, we don't really wanna know, but if it's
Yeah.
something outside the ordinary, then they should at least talk to you.
Yeah, I did notice they did a couple of those basins down in my neck of the woods down there, and they look good, and I'm glad to see it happening, so.
Yeah, he gave me a list, Old Waterbury Road, Pine Rock Road, Luna Trail, by the library, Main Street North, and that's it so far. So those were the ones that he's been working on, or is going to be working on, so,
Good.
like I said, he can go over a plan with you if you think it's necessary, but it sounds like we're good.
I think we're all right with that.
Okay.
Do you want to do bills and receipts, correspondence and stuff, or no?
I I don't think we have anything.
Don't have
for
that?
it, no.
Well, our secretary isn't with us, so I don't think we have that, that stuff. Anything else?
Unless you wanna do the minutes, the approval of the minutes?
Minutes? Any comments on the minutes? Anybody? All right, we'll consider them good then, I guess.
So you had November and December,
Yep.
2 sets, I don't know why November is legal. If you're good with them now.
Two different ones, you mean?
Yeah, 2 months.
They were done twice, is that what you're saying?
No, you have November.
2 months, we have to approve 2
Yeah.
months worth.
Well, we don't really approve them normally, but we just sort of, if nobody objects to them, they go into record. That's what we used to do. If you want them approved, we can certainly do that, but, all right.
No, I guess if that's what was always done.
That's what we used to do,
Okay,
but
okay.
we can vote to approve them if you want, if you prefer, I don't care. That's true.
It's easier to just say, if you don't object, this is the way it's going.
There you go.
So no objections, no objections.
No objections. File as noted, I guess. All right, well then, if there's nothing else, I'll move to adjourn at 8:23. Have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Matter of discussion before we go. Anybody have any strong feelings about what we're gonna do about the Bagley Road mess? His presentation that seemed to make sense.
What are you asking, Bill?
I'm just asking if anybody has any strong thoughts about it.
About Bagley